जयति पराशरसूनुः सत्यवती हृदयनन्दनो व्यासः यस्य आस्य कमलगलितं वाङ्मयममृतं जगत्पिबति भुजगभोगाभमुद्यम्य हृद्यं निजभुजं दक्षिणं लक्षणाढ्यं ललितमुद्रिक्तविज्ञानमुद्रं भज भज अनन्तमित्यालपन्तं प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रीणये पूर्णबोधम् भवदवोष्णेन ततप्यमानान् भुवि परं नाथमप्रेक्षमाणान् भुवनमन्येन च अन्येन दोष्णा भवतु भीर्मा इति नः सान्त्वयन्तं प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रीणये पूर्णबोधम्.
Now we are familiar with the four Vedas and the voluminous treasure of Vedic literature. We also learned about sections such as Samhitas. Let us now understand Aranyaka, Upanishad, and Brahmanas. Aranyakas comprises the details of Vedas. The word Brahmana comes from Brahmanaka. It means Veda. Do you know the actual meaning of Brahma? It means big or great. God is the most enormous energy in this world. Vedas are the most extensive collection of audio literature in the world. So, Brahmanas are those who have understood the greatness of the Vedas. Brahmana has three layers of meaning, namely, one who understands greatness, God who knows Veda, one who can understand both. So the word Brahmana had these three interpretations. Brahmana is a text as an appendix to simplify Vedic text and thereby helps spread this knowledge to the world. In other words, Brahmana also means the illustrative portion of Vedas or appendix. For example, Ishetvorjatva Vayavasto Payavasta Devova. A lengthy description of this sukta is explained in the Brahmana. It explains the action to be taken for the corresponding mantra. Therefore, Brahmana elucidates the activities related to yajna. Each Veda has a division called Brahmana. Aranyaka is a concentrated text. It was essential to let go of worldly activities and concentrate on studying deep in the woods. This was a kind of unique study, sans the everyday pressures of life. This does not mean that one understands the text only in the woods. It is not a literal concept. Some take it literally and do not open the book in the house. A similar fallacy is prevalent in Garuda Purana as well. It is believed that Garuda Purana has to be read after death. How can one read after death? One should read before death to understand the content, right? People do not understand that it should be read by a person alive in the house where death has occurred. Let me explain an interesting incident that occurred when I was a child. I was reading Garuda Purana. My mother asked me what I was reading. I told her, and she was dismayed. She demanded why I was reading Garuda Purana while she was alive. She complained to my father. She said, "This boy is reading Garuda Purana while we are still alive." Such a reaction is nothing but fear of death. We are scared of the word death. We die every day in fear. We do not learn to live in confidence. Garuda Purana is one of the best among the 18 Puranas. We must read it when we are alive. It is so ironic that someone else reads it after our death. So finally, the complaint was heard by my father. My father encouraged me to read the Garuda Purana. He said I was doing well and told my mother her fear was baseless. This quietened my mother, or else a racket would have been at home that day. Such was the fear of reading Garuda Purana. Let us now look at Karna Sukta. It is called Karna Sukta because one should memorize it and chant it before death. It talks about immortality, being in the highest vibrancy of happiness, and getting rid of all the miseries in life. But will everyone who is dying be able to chant? Therefore, assistance is required to whisper in the ears of the dying person. The prevalent practice is that the children have to whisper in their parents' ears. The dying parent may be able to hear but not chant by himself or herself. Therefore, it is called Karna Sukta, to be whispered in the ear. In the current times, the children may not have learned the Sukta. So we have to depend on the Purohita or the priest. The Purohita passes the buck, says he will wait and chant after death. At present, it is done after the death of the person. This is how we have lost the original essence of the Vedic practices. Is it not ridiculous that we whisper Karna Sukta to the ear of a corpse? This shows how the good practices got corrupted over the period. Reading or listening to the Karna Sukta is to help the dying person vibrate in higher consciousness and awareness. The soul leaves the body with a heightened state of awareness, making it possible to manifest the desire after the soul's departure to reach the divine. This is psychology. He or she will become what he or she desires just before the last breath. So it is necessary to instill the concept of immortality into the dying person's consciousness. He will certainly attain the desired moksha or immortality. But now the Purohita has to mutter after the person's death. Is this not a tragedy that such a wonderful sukta is not chanted during the person's lifetime? No one chants it, fearing death. It is reduced to a ritual of an after-death ceremony. Karna Sukta is the most sacred of all texts. This has to be learned and chanted during our lifetime so that we will remember Garuda Purana in our last breath. Therefore, this sukta has to be practiced daily. There are many such confusions about our valuable texts. Fear has overridden common sense. Mahabharata is not read at home, fearing the deadly war and the resulting massacre. So reading the epic is believed to invite death into the house. one dies even without reading it. The number of people not reading the epic is more than the ones who have read it. There is no house in this world where one has not experienced death. So, why should we blame Mahabharata? We have many such false notions. Death knocks at the house door where Mahabharata, Karna Sukta, and Garuda Purana are read. Such is the ignorance. We have shackled ourselves with superstitions and need help keeping the Vedic literature in vogue. The root cause for all such assumptions is the fear of death. Brahmana is the correct pronunciation. It is not Brahmanas as it is usually said. Even the Vedic scholars make this mistake. It is pronounced as Brahmanas only in Samaveda. This is elongated for the sake of chanting it as a verse. Break of the vowel sound is allowed while singing in verse. One is not allowed to do so in other Vedas. But we hear Brahmana in the Samaveda chants, which is easy for us to follow. It may be challenging to break the sounds and say Brahmana. Who will approve if only one person pronounces Brahmana and thousands of others say Brahmana? Who will vote for one against thousands? This is the time of majority and democracy. So a lone person like me pronouncing Brahmana will not be considered nor approved. I have to nod my head for the wrong sound. I have no control over the error approved by thousands. There are many such errors. For example, in the Vedas, it goes like Hagumsa Shruti. It is not Hagumsaha. It should be Hansaha. Gum is irrelevant and against the tenets of Vedas. No one knows how Gum was added. Maybe someone had a stuffed nose and fever and mispronounced it. Hansaha Shata, there is Nakara here. But I have noticed everyone articulating it as Hagumsa. How did Na disappear and Gum appear? Did it appear as per the rules or amendment? It is not questioned, and everyone finds it easy to follow. There is a wonderful system in the Vedas. A section in the Vedas describes the right way of intonation and sound. But who has the patience to go through and correct themselves? More such errors are seen when consonants and stress have to be highlighted. For example, Ahang Shloka is uttered as Ahaggushlokagat. Again, Na sound is omitted. One has to press the nose and utter the word to omit Na. This error has occurred in the tradition. Therefore, the followers of tradition are not ready to change. Let us acknowledge such errors, correct, and move ahead. Those who stay in the Aranya engage in Manasa Yagna, meaning engaging the mind in attaining the desired goal. It means going inwards and performing yagna through meditation. I have already spoken about yagna, which is performed physically. Upanishads help us in attaining manasa yagna. What is Upanishad? One who looks into the dictionary for meanings understands Upanishad as upa, means near and nishad means to bring closer. For example, a disciple moving closer towards his guru or a seeker towards the Almighty. This meaning is prevalent generally, but this is not the actual meaning. We need to check the meaning of the Sanskrit word during the period of Vedas. The dictionary meaning of upa is near, subordinate as in upanadi, like a rivulet subordinate to the original river. The fundamental meaning of upa in Sanskrit is not near or subordinate. It means greater or higher, as in upper, or upar in Hindi, upparige in Kannada, ober in German. So, Upanishad means a text which takes us higher, not nearer. Let us look at this word, upanayana, which brings us closer to God. In the same logic, why should we not refer to weddings as upanayana? Here, man and woman come closer, right? The scripture says, Striyam vivahakaramam upanayanam. So, marriage is also upanayana. But the real meaning is elevating man to higher order or frequency. Our scholar Narsimachar spoke about Omkara. What is the meaning of the word Omkara before Upanayana? A, U, M. Usually it stands for Ata, playing around, Uta, eating, and Malagu, sleeping. This was on the lighter side. We need to understand that Upanayana means to lift us to a higher level of spiritualism. Instead, we have always practiced Omkara in our life, like roaming, eating, and sleeping religiously. We wander around to make money. We fill our bellies and then rest. When all of these are too much, we rest in peace permanently. Understanding the uplifting values to elevate our life is Upanayana. It makes humans mentally soar into a higher plane of spiritual life. Therefore, Vedic literature has Veda Samhitas, Brahmanas, which give details of the Vedas. Aranyakas, a go-to text for concentrated meditation in the Upanishads. As discussed earlier, we have lost a lot of Vedic literature already. What remains is a tiny percentage of the entire text. We could keep them alive by studying them. Knowledge of this minuscule residue of Vedic text is enough for us to rise above the rest of humanity in this universe. We cannot challenge foreigners economically as they are already above us. We Indians will become poorer as years pass because we have not concentrated on multiplying our resources. The population is growing rapidly in our country, so for 100 years from now, we will remain poor. We can hold our heads high in pride in terms of knowledge, if not in economy. But what is happening in our education field now? The curriculum in the education industry is not our own. It is thrust on us by the foreigners. English is not our native language, so we may not be as good as they are. We have ignored our treasures of knowledge and traded for their irrelevant Western knowledge. We have become a laughing stock. They mock our English. Should we continue to live as second class citizens by imitating the West? Or uphold the heritage that is abundantly available to us? Sadly, we have traded ourselves for Western knowledge. This is my personal experience. In my travels abroad, I learned that the foreigners greatly respected our knowledge. The reason is they have read and understood our ancient traditions. But we have considered it as outdated and irrelevant. They are inquisitive about Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and the rest. Our youngsters who shift abroad after completing their English education are often asked about our ancient knowledge system. Our youth cannot furnish any detail or enter into meaningful discussions. Instead, they dismiss the questions with disregard. They laugh at us and jibe if we are proficient in the Bible, which alienates us. It's not possible to elevate ourselves by aping the West. To sum up, I presented our country's rich Vedic literature. Let me clarify that the yajna performed here does not include all four Vedas. I have already explained to you how many are used today. The yajna being performed here is called Rik Samhita Homa. This yajna is also called Satra. It means holistic. Satra Yaga is performed through an association or group. A.R. Achar is responsible for performing the yajna by the entire group here. The Diksha now binds him to take the leadership of completing this excellent work. All the group members can't undergo Diksha. Yesterday, A.R. Achar underwent Diksha Bandhana on behalf of all of you. The rest of the 8 Archakas also have undergone Diksha Bandhana. Now for the rest of the 9 days, they are free of worldly matters. Each Rik has one offering to Agni as per the Rig Veda rites. I will explain the objectives of performing the Homa and the Yajna in detail. The logic of the different offerings to Lord Agni will also be explained. I still have 2 more days to present my discourse. I have no qualms about presenting the facts in Vedas. We have to engage ourselves in a serious discussion on understanding our ancient text and saving it from extinction. Our Upadhyaya mentioned an interesting fact about Veda yesterday. Vedaksharani Patina. He recited a shloka from Varaha Purana and reiterated that each word in Veda is a remembrance of God. Therefore, one should keep this in mind during the performance of yajna. Today, A.R. Achar mentioned that prahavyate yajna rupaha, which means we perform the yajna. But it is a boat filled with holes. Can you cross the river in a boat filled with holes? These scholars from Gokarna ferry us in such a flawed boat and doom is inevitable. They will return to Gokarna safely, but we, the people of Mumbai, will drown in such a boat. How to row a boat that has holes is the question now. How to fill the holes? Vedas mentions the importance of performing yajna and states that it is like rowing a boat filled with holes. Our ancestors had an awareness that was quite frightening. They warn us that if we perform yajna without awareness, it is like ferrying a boat with holes. If it is performed with awareness, then it is a strong boat. Bhagavata says Agni Muddaha, which means that people performing yajna are those attracted to fire. It is sure death if one is close to the fire. Is it not ironic that our Purohits are dying every day for years, spending hours in front of the fire? So, whatever we do, it must be with complete awareness. It is happiness when one understands the meanings of the shlokas. Else, it is like smoking the fire that harms our life. Therefore, it is important to know the concept before performing yajna. Harihi Om is uttered before and after Veda chanting. It means that every word uttered after that is remembering the importance of God. It is essential to utter each letter in Veda clearly, not just the words. This is the shloka from Varaha Purana. All of them are nothing but names of God. In Rig Veda, there are around 10,552 mantras and 1,028 suktas. Few of the letters are lost. We have found 4,32,000 letters in Charana Vyuha. This corresponds with the number of years in Kali Yuga. I am not sure how it was ascertained. Rig Veda does not have so many letters. I think many kilas were added. I will tell you more about kilas later. A few sections were added in the Vedas later. Now, this was not created and added. A few sections from another Veda was added. For example, in Valakila Sukta, there are around 11 suktas, 80 mantras. This was not in the Shakala Samhita. It was in Bhaskala Samhita, which was added to Shakala Samhita. Sri Sukta is not in Shakala Samhita. Usually, this is taught to the young boys after Upanayana. This is how many of the letters were added from other suktas. Otherwise, there are less than 4 lakh letters in Vedas. Shravanacharya says that in Charna Vyuha there are around 4 lakhs and more letters. But now 30 to 35,000 letters are in deficit. In sum, when we recite Rig Veda, we utter 4,32,000 letters of Almighty. We have to perform the yajna with this awareness. So today's discourse was about the background of yajna and the awareness needed. I will be talking more about the meaning of yajna, Pashubali offering, the reason for offering ghee, samhitas, kunda, and its relation to life. Yajna kunda means life. The connection between Yajna Kunda and life, connection of external and internal Agni. Why did our ancestors give importance to the Yajna that was in the direction of Agni? I will elucidate the meaning of Omkara. Discourse on Omkara may take a week. How did Omkara turn into Vyakriti and then to Gayatri, to Purusha Sukta, and finally to the 3 Vedas? How did the growth from a seed mature to a tree? I will be happy to explain this to you in case you have the patience to listen.